Okay. Okay, so let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are. So, thanks to our sponsors for making this event happen. A little introduction about the speaker. So, today we will go through brief presentation about Salesforce implementation and how can you get most out of it, how can you improve its optimization and throughput. If you are new, we will also go through what is throughput, what is scalable solutions, and how can you build that. So I have tried to add most of it in the slides. I will also share the slides with you so that you can download it if you want to, and we'll figure out a way how to do it. So the agenda will be first we will go to the introduction of what a scalable solution is, what is a good solution, what is a bad solution, and there will be like three main important factors for it, like availability, performance, and scalability. So I have divided it into three parts, and we will be going in these three parts in detail. We will also go through the patterns and anti-patterns for them. What are the good practices, and what are the things you can do to avoid it? And in the end, we will have a small QA session as well. So, first of all, introduction about what is a reliable solution, and what is a unreliable solution. So, think of it as in a way um, like if there is any social media app, Salesforce, or any such thing like that. If they are not a reliable solution, you will expect them to behave differently in different situations. So, but all of these solutions are reliable solution. So the key aspects to any solution, to make it reliable, is that it should have it should operate effectively. It should be dependable. Um, it should be available to perform what users expect it to perform, and it should consistently scale with business. Um, Reliability is representation of system quality, and it should not be error prone. So if it is error prone, doesn't mean that there should be no errors, but it should not be error prone. So it should behave as um, the users want it or expect it to behave in timely manner. So it shouldn't be taking too long for any page loads or any such requests as well. On the other hand, what is an unreliable solution is something that the user does not know what to expect from the system. So there are error outs at critical times, and the system cannot provide accurate information to the stakeholders. The loading is taking a lot of time, and things like that. The system is not available when users want to visit it at key moments. So anything like that will make it a unreliable solution. So, moving forward, why reliable solutions are really important is, and what are the key moments that key things that people tend to not, focus a lot on, is that reliability of a system is not constant. So we need to make sure that a system that is performing on a less volume of data with less users, it will remain reliable in the longer run with when there are more people, when there's more data. And so we need to make sure it is scalable enough. A system that is running fine for 10 users but doesn't run fine for 100 users is not scalable, and thus will not be a reliable solution. So we need to make sure that the system remains reliable throughout the time. So it is not something that is constant. Um, and why are they really important? Because the maintenance when you have built the solution, and refactoring and the re-architecturing of that solution will be very costly. So what we'll do is we will see the key factors, and we will try to accommodate them initially. So everything related to um, performance, availability, scalability, while we are making it, to make sure that the system will remain scalable and reliable throughout. So yeah, and I've seen that people, big companies spending a lot in refactoring those solutions, and due to that, they cannot, move forward to newer technologies that Salesforce are bringing in, because they're spending way too much on what the existing solution is and trying to make that work. So I've divided the um, reliable solution into three main parts: availability, performance, and scalability. We'll go into them one by one. So, what is availability first? So, availability means that if a user wants to use the system, it should be available. So there are two types of availability. The first one is the infrastructure level. So that is something that Salesforce maintains. So if you, but Salesforce now also gives you capability to do that if you want with Hyperforce. So you can build your own AWS servers and host your application there. But generally, the infrastructure level is Salesforce responsibility. But whatever you um, build on it will be your responsibility. So it is a collective responsibility. Um, you should always have downtime. As Salesforce also have some downtime, so that you can prepare for any upgrades or anything like that, any unforeseen circumstances and anything like that. Um, Yeah, and think about availability and the initial part of your solution. So when you are building it, make sure you keep enough time when you are in the initial design phase, so that you allocate some time and resources on making sure that the system is available enough. It is not taking a lot of resources, and that is a priority as well. um, as what is your responsibility as an architect? It is to frame your concerns in a language that business understands. Obviously, if you are going to ask business about saying that um, the page loading or something is very technical that they won't understand, then it is not the use. It is your responsibility to convince the business or stakeholders to spend that time and resources on availability at the initial part. So there are two things in availability that we can look forward to. So in order to increase availability, the first is risk management. The second one is failure mitigation. So we need to make sure we are working on both of these. So we'll go into details to that. What is risk management? Risk management are basically when we are trying to identify potential hazard that can come in future. So your experience counts a lot in this one. Business processes can multiply, can have great scale, things like that. um, as an architect, from your experience, it is your responsibility to make sure you have done enough risk analysis that it can represent the concern of both technical and the business stakeholders. um, yeah, and the key point always that comes up here is, how are we going to assess risk? How are we going to say that this is the impact? So for that, a lot of enterprise companies use risk assessment frameworks. So uh, when I worked in like huge organization, they are like very standard in their approach. So they will identify it, they will prioritize it, they will identify the impact and severity, and how are they going to resolve it. So I've also added some key points in there to how you can identify it, how you can mitigate it, and so on. So so basically, you don't need to. There cannot be a system where there's no risk. So the risk will always be there, but you need to make sure that you have the right approach, right frameworks in place, and time allocated, as I said initially in the start, to start working on them. um, Second thing, a lot of people that I've seen doing is generally everything is important. So they mark like any issue, any risk that comes in is 100% important. So that is not the case. Uh, Salesforce uses a particular framework which is called V2MOM, which is basic. We will see in detail also what it represent and how you're how do they do it. So it's basically something like what's the vision, like what are we going to do with it, what is the method, what is the observation, how are we going to improve it. So each and every step they have divided into different parts. If you really want to deep dive into it, I think you can start from V2 Mom. It is like really good, and Salesforce follow it is as well, so it will give you a good start. Now we come to the failure mitigation part. Failure point in any system can, occur unexpectedly, but we have to make sure that it is also handled. um, there will never be a system in which there is never a failure. So good mitigation plan isn't about having no failure. It is about having a system in place that is going to deal with that failure in according. And these all these things in availability are linked with each other. So if you are in the design phase and you've kept some time for like performance upgradation or anything like that, they all will link with each other. It will help you in failure mitigation strategies as well. So what are the classification types of failures and mitigations? We have divided them into three different categories: people, process, and technology. So and we are going to see this later in the slides as well with more details. So if there's a people failure, like example, if this is a scenario which has something to deal with people, there should be a policy for it. If it is something that is a process issue, then you need to have a playbook or a continuity plan or an alternative to it. And if it is a technology failure, then we should have a different technology solution with it as part of our failure plan. So what we have done is like given a small scenario, right? And it will give you what is the trigger and what are the different level of steps that you can do to in order to avoid them. So a user access change, for example, has happened. A new, let's say, an employee is departing your organization. So a mitigation plan would be to have an SLA and requirements around provisioning, deprovisioning, what will happen. So this will be the mitigation plan, but the basic mitigation plan is like everything is manual. You check from the user, you do it from manually, and you go to the user and you deactivate it. Immediate will be that there will be a um, scheduled job that will deactivate all the users that are like that have left that company that day or that week, something like that. But a mature solution would be to have a automated SSO type of a solution in place that will cut off the access of that particular user from each and every thing that you have already posted there. So these are the different levels of your failure plan that you can come up with how to cope up with them. So we've discussed availability. I think we have discussed a lot of things in it. So what are the patterns and what are anti-patterns? Using patterns are obviously using a framework, categorizing into what type of risk is, evaluating what the impact is, what the severity is, and finally having a mitigation plan. In failure, you need to identify the failure triggers, like what is the point that creates that, triggers that, and what are the controls that you put in place. These are all the patterns. The anti patterns will be opposite of it, that there's no framework, no risk identification, the customer perspective is not taken care of, and risk mitigation response policies are ad hoc, and failure points are not classified, but mitigation plans and controls are not revisited after every failure, and automation is not used. So we need to avoid all of these. Now we'll come to performance. Performance is basically overall processing capacity of a system and how fast it responds to a request from the user. So if a process, if a request is completed in timely manner, as the user expects. So the user expectations is also a very important part in it. So it should not be that the request has done in timely manner. It should also that cater the anticipated level of demand. So user expectations are or user perception is also a very key part in this. We have also so there's two issue in this one as well. So we have to see performance in terms of latency and throughputs. Um, Performance issue are often a matter of urgency and can result in trust of customers. So the trust of customers is like something that is really really important, and that is why I keep iterate on performance. It is that the customer perspective will become very essential when you are working with performance. So how can you improve your performance of your solution? There are two main parts that I've divided into: throughput and latency. So what is throughput? Throughput is basically number of concurrent requests a system can handle in any given time interval. So so Salesforce operates in a level that there are governor limits. So governor limits are especially there to make sure, and a lot of people ask me this as well, that why are there governor limits? Because the resources are shared. So if one process is taking all the resources, other process will be have to put on hold. So we cannot, allow that to happen. So there are governor limits so that each process can, work concurrently, simultaneously. So you need to be able to calculate workload of your system, and you need to try to have different solutions around it. So it is, if there's something that you are constantly putting on future method and doing API call out, you will go into issue API limits, and excuse me, and there are also limits on future method. There's a flex queue. Amount of future method that you can line is, I think, 50 in any given time interval. So all those types of issues you will run into. Um, so workload we have divided into three dimensions: number of transactions, number of user, and overall complexity of the system. So we need to make sure that we are calculating how many transactions will be made, how many users will be using it, and what the overall complexity of the system is. So when thinking about perf- uh, performance throughput, what we usually tend to do is calculate the CPU time limit only, but it is much more than that. As I said, the user expectation of something is also a part of it. So to optimize throughput, there are key factors. I think they will cover most of it. Asynchronous processing, as I said, using future method, bulkification of code, using SOCL when SOCL is not necessary. You can also measure how much your SOCL is taking. You're using your platform cache, all things like that. For latency is the measure of how fast systems is executing something. So if it's taking some time, then it will create a sense of urgency in end users. So we are going to calculate it. How are we going to optimize it? Usually the key factors are reports and report filters. Don't use things like contain in report filters. Try to simplify your sharing model. Don't make it you know something like it is not necessarily unnecessarily creating more records or duplicate records or some anything like that. Optimize your UI components. There are a lot of tools available now, especially with LWC, that can give you times and how much time a page load has done and things like that. So you use them, use LWC, use Lightning Data Service, use LWR for communities. If you're making huge stores, use client side sorting. This is absolutely necessary. Don't make unnecessary server callouts. So, what are the patterns and what are the anti patterns for throughput? I think the patterns are very clear, that you use platform cache, bulkification, DML, selective sockle, asynchronous processing, cache partition, things like that. Don't make unnecessary server callouts. The anti patterns are that using platform cache that does not adheres, and DML statements are not bulkified. There are queries in loops, and sockle queries are taking long time. There's no social use, and synchronous process is happening that is keeping other process on wait. Visual force view state, I've seen people putting a lot of things in view state, so all those type of things will become an anti-pattern eventually. Throughput, how to improve your throughput in latency. Don't use contains in your filter. Be very specific in your report filters. Do not use formula fields. Keep simple sharing models. Keep simple data model. uh, Make the use the LWC, LWR, SLDS as much as you can, and don't make an unnecessary server callouts. Now, the last topic of for us is scalability. So, scalability is how the system grows over time. That you need to make sure. So, if one sockle query is taking 1 second for 10 records, it will take, and with time, it is not improving. So, it will take a long time eventually, and that will be you will have to require refactoring and redesigning in that. So multiple issues can occur, and then at that time, it will become really costly to deal with them. uh, you can better architect for skill if you focus on data model optimization and data volume management. Those two are keys. So data modeling is, as I said, don't make redundant data, don't grow them unnecessarily. If you can keep it simple, that will eventually help you, or else you'll have to use indexing or scaling and things like that. So use out of the box as much as you can. Choose record types, right, instead of creating new objects for it. If you can, sometimes I've seen people using an object instead of a pick list or things like that. Choose right relationship, that is also very important. If something can be done by master detail, if something can be done by lookup, you need to be uh, on top of it. Denormalize for scale, normalize for process structuring or data model, reduce redundancy. We have already talked about that. Denormalized table can perform and scale, but data integrity and redundancy will be considered. So all those factors, data volume, measure of amount of data stored in your system. As if something can be archived, use that. If something goes to the data lake, let that go to the data lake. Don't need to put everything in Salesforce. Distribute the child record. Don't create data skew by having, single parent have 10,000 records. Don't create that. It will mess up with your data. Make sure that the ownership of records is also distributed. There shouldn't be one user using 1 million, owner of 1 million records or something like that. And, you know, don't change user roles or profiles or something like that, and sharing frequently, that system will have to do recalculations on. So we should need to avoid all of these. Reduce record data. Don't need to put transactional data, data archiving, data aggregation, and data tiering. These will all help you in keeping the data volume to as low as it can. You can also use data backups and things like that to remove it from your Salesforce. So the last part is questions. So I will go ahead and check if there are any questions from anyone.
Any questions for the Zaid? Zaid, people wants to know you are here in Pakistan or in Dubai.
Unfortunately, I couldn't join because of some issue, but I'm in Dubai right now. But I will. I tried, but I couldn't join.
Anyone else? Zaid, I think there's no more questions. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. It was nice speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.